Hey, everybody, it's Sam Jacobs. Welcome back to the Sales Hacker Podcast. Hope you're having a great Friday. You're joining us for Friday Fundamentals, and we've got on the show this week's guest, Travis Huff, who runs B2B sales for Wayfair, sales director over there, helping grow that business from $300 million to $1 billion over the last just under 3 years, I think. And Travis was this week's guest. He did an amazing job. And we're here to talk about the science of sales and how to make sure that even if you are not the top performer at your company, that you can compete with those top performers and what you need to do. Now, before we dive into that, we want to, of course, thank the people that put food on the table, at least food on the table for me. And that is Outreach. So Outreach is the sponsor of Friday Fundamentals, and they triple the productivity of sales teams and empower them to drive predictable and measurable revenue growth. By prioritizing the right activities and scaling customer engagement with intelligent automation, Outreach makes customer-facing teams more effective and improves visibility into what really drives results. And if you're out there online at Amazon or in a bookstore, Outreach, the team at Outreach, which is Max Altschuler, Manny Medina, and Mark Kosselglow, just released Sales Engagement, the definitive book on sales engagement, which is a fascinating page turner and a great read. So pick it up if you have a chance. It's on Amazon.com. And thanks to Outreach, as always, for their patronage. Without further ado, we want to talk to Travis. So Travis, when you're thinking about, I am not the top performer, but I want to compete with a top performer, what do I need to do? Give me some advice.
Great. I love this question because I think you've got so many people coming into the sales industry and they haven't been in the sales industry before, and it's an intimidating thing to come into a sales organization and to see your top performers, and you come in there and you struggle, and the company gives you your baseline activity metrics and they say you need to make this many attempts, this many connections per day, and here's your quota, go out and get it. And I think the biggest mistake that new salespeople make when they come into the industry and come into a company is they look at that revenue quota and they say, I'm going to go after it. But what they've never done is they've never stopped to say, what is my personal quota against my personal activity metrics, right? So let me give you an example. So I think first thing that you need to do is you need to establish what I call a VPC, a value per contact. And that is an individual metric. It's not a company metric. It tells you how well you do against the revenue that you create. So what's your skill level in creating revenue? And it's a really simple equation. You just take your total revenue that you've sold over 30 days and you divide that by the total number of connections that you've made. And that's going to spit out your VPC. Now, you have to determine what determines a connection. So for us, it's any outbound call over 3 minutes long. So only 3 minutes because you're probably not talking to a voicemail. You're probably in a conversation. And so that VPC number may spit out depending on, the business you're in. For us, an average VPC is about $650. So then what you need to do is you take that VPC and you go to your quota and you take your quota for the quarter or the month, whatever it is, you divide it by that VPC. And then you take that number and you divide it by the total number of days that are in that quarter or in that month. And that is going to spit out the total number of connections that you need to make. And here's the beautiful thing about it. People look at that number and it's going to vary. So your top performers. So I'm going to give you a real example inside of Wayfair. Inside of Wayfair, our minimum is 12 connections per day per rep. And so our top earners, if you do this math, their connections per day are going to be 8 connections per day, 9 connections per day. It's not even going to be the minimum. So our other reps who are brand new to the organization, they're going to look at that and they're going to go, well, I'm going to need to be at 14, 15 connections per day, but that's okay. And so here's the reality in the conversation I have with salespeople all the time. Look, sales is not fair, but if you want to compete at the highest level, you can do that if you know what your science is. And so I've got reps that come in, and this is an example. When I first came in, I had 2 reps. They were not leading the sales organization, but they wanted to. And we figured out their math, and then we said, look, you guys are going to need to be 16 connections per day. That's a lot for you guys to do, and you have to be consistent. And so what they did is they went through and they made a commitment to each other. They were going to work that process, and every single day they didn't leave until they had 12 or 16 quality connections per day. And at the end of the quarter, they were number 1 and number 2 in the organization across the whole sales organization. And the reality is that they had, and they were not the best skilled salespeople. They just simply outworked everyone else. But here's the interesting thing. As they made more connections than everyone else, they were taking more turns at the plate. And so their skill level was increasing throughout that quarter. And so at the end of the quarter, I said, well, what are you guys going to do? Obviously, now your VPC's increased. You're making 16 connections a day. What are you guys going to do? You're going to probably lower your connections per day. And they said, no way. We figured that we can do 16 connections per day. Now our VPC is higher. It's going to actually drive more revenue. So everybody's trying to catch us. So now we're going to maintain it. And so I think for sales reps coming into the business, that's what you've got to do. You've got to hit the ground running. Sometimes you've got to work harder than the people next to you, but working harder produces a better skill set. You learn faster. And as long as you understand your metrics, you'll never miss another quota. Again, if you're living that and being true to it. But remember, those numbers are every day. So if you come in one day and you miss it by 5 connections, those 5 connections don't go away. They need to be made up somewhere else. So some days you're going to be over, some days you're going to be under. You just need to make sure that you're true to the science of those numbers, because they will produce for you every single month and every single quarter without fail.
It's fantastic advice. So value per connection. And we've heard it here on Friday Fundamentals, value per contact. Sorry. That's what Travis has to share with us. Travis, remind us about your email address again. There's folks out there that are probably inspired by what you just shared and want to reach out to you.
Yep. Email is thuff@wayfair.com. Shoot me an email. If you want the formulas, I'd be glad to send it out to you.
That's awesome. Travis, thanks so much for being our guest this week on the Sales Hacker Podcast. And thanks so much for supporting the show. I'll look forward to meeting you in person soon.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Thanks.